back to the Got Her Back podcast. What's up, Maggie?
I know.
You're matching the scenery over here. What does your shirt say?
Nope. I'm going back today.
To bed.
Yeah.
That is so you.
It is.
Do you just find these and think, that's me?
That's me.
Is that what you do when
Yeah.
you buy these? Like,
Yeah.
definitely me.
You know, when Taryn was little, like, there was cute things for boys. And so he always had, like, you know, something on his chest. And it was always something funny. And so, you know, I'm just, like, keeping the hope alive.
Keeping it going. He still kind of wears, like,
he does.
funny, like, shirts and stuff.
Yeah, he
that's
loves
Gabe's thing, too. Like, he likes a good, funny sweater or shirt.
Yeah, he loves a good thrift store shirt, too.
He got one of those hoodies that has, like, a QR code. And I feel like when you scan it, it's like... fuck off or something. I can't remember what it is.
I've never seen one of those. I need to look. I need to get that.
Made, I'll have him send it to you, but he's like,
funny.
I want to wear it, but I'm kind of like, you know, but I'm like, you bought it, wear it.
Girl, like, I can't tell you how many times I've, like, screwed up for the ugly Christmas sweater. Like, I think maybe we've talked about this, maybe not, but one year I came and I was actually pregnant with Tristan, and freaking my staff was like, Megan, do you realize there's reindeers having sex on that sweater? Yeah. And then the next one, it was like, go Brandon, and I didn't know that was like a Trump sweatshirt. And I was like, I just thought it was the Grinch.
Because you don't read anything.
I don't. I just am like, put that in my
You're so like
cart.
impulsive. You're like, bing, bing, bing. And then you're just like so fast and busy and on to the next thing. I think that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
so too.
What are we talking about today?
Girl,
Sister girl?
I brought a book, Enough is Enough, and it's by David E. Clarke, and it's a step-by-step plan to leave an abusive relationship with God's help. Mm-hmm. I read this book, like, you know.
Was this like ordered?
No.
Okay.
I actually found it on my own and, you know, like was really struggling. Like when I was court ordered to go to co-parenting class, and I'm like, how am I going to sit next to a person like
that one was hard.
Yeah. For all these weeks, like literally like right next to them that I don't even want to be in the same space with. Like literally I left that first class throwing up. It was awful. You know what I mean?
I would like wait on you every time you left, and I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, like you would like call me or whatever. But this book, like it was eye-opening for me. Like I knew my situation was bad. And I had been in a relationship where I had someone on the other side just making me feel like I was the crazy one for years, and like it was all me, and I had childhood trauma, and you know I was doing, you know, he could do no wrong, and it was all, you know, everything was always my fault.
Did you ever truly feel like that deep down, or did you like know, or did you truly have moments where you were like,
yes, I think that's how you
what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
And you did?
Yeah. Like I think, you know, if you look back a year and a half ago when you guys asked me, did I love myself or how did I feel about myself? That's why I would tell you no, you know, like.
I hated that.
Yeah. Like because my self-esteem was so low and it's such a small, like, and it's the shame, like, of tolerating and trying to hide what was really going on in your house, even to family members. Of course, you knew not everything, but you knew the majority. You know, I had close confidants that I would, you know, talk to. But it was really just, you know, trying to, you know, push through on a daily basis and realizing like, you know, this book really helped me a lot because it really broke down like all the different types of abuse. And so I just like was like, you know what, like I think this would be good for the podcast because even if you've got one thing that we talk about today, you know, going on in your household, like no marriage is perfect by any means, but like it is not okay, and God doesn't want you to stay with somebody if they're abusing you. And abuse comes in many forms and fashion. And so I literally like was going through the co-parenting class and I had this book. And so I got a highlighter out, and you can literally see like I highlighted passages in it. And, you know, I took it to class one day, and I was like, I had like 4 pages here, and I highlighted it. And I wrote Darian a letter, and, you know, it was like, look, like you made me feel for years like I was the crazy one and these things weren't happening. And you can see clearly, like maybe if you hear it from somebody else, you'll finally believe what you're doing is abusive, because I want it to stop today.
It was validating.
Right. I don't want you to continue this on. I don't want you to do this in any more relationships. I don't want you to do this in front of our daughter or our kids. I don't want you to do this in front of anybody else's kids. Like, you've got to make some changes. Not that I didn't need to make some changes, because I did need to make some changes and I've worked on myself, but I was in no way, shape, or form abusive in my marriage. You know what I mean? So let's just start with the first one. And so it's like this book.
Come on, Teacher Meg.
Let's go, girl. I'm going to read some passages like I'm reading the Bible to y'all today.
Oh, hell.
Oh, God. Girl. Put that one in there. So he just starts out the section and it's like what abusers really think, say, and do. And so as a person who was supposed to love you and take care of you has been consistently treating you in one or more abusive ways. Any one of these behaviors, and I underlined one, taken to an extreme can be enough to call him abusive. And you can also put in her because this could go either way, right? So the first one, I would just say, like, let's go through each one of these and then let's kind of talk through them. You know what I mean? So the first one is I verbally abuse you. So I'm highly critical of you. And I'm going to give you some examples and we can talk through it. It says, I'm highly critical of you, especially when you don't meet my expectations and you rarely meet my expectations. I mock you and belittle you for shortcomings. I attack you personally for your weight, your parenting, your housekeeping. I highlighted your parenting and your housekeeping because I used to get that a lot in my household. And any area which you or your actions are unacceptable to me. Sarcasm is my second language. When you complain, I say you're too sensitive. Wow. Did we talk about that in the gaslighting exit? Yeah.
That one was a big one when she told me that is not good.
I was just kidding. Or if you changed, I wouldn't have to criticize you. I'm going to continue to shred you verbally and there's nothing left of you. Some of that I feel like the last part of that is extreme. You know what I mean? But like there's little nuances of that in there. And that's why I took my highlighter and literally like examples in my household be like, you know, I was always attacked as a mother. I worked a lot. You know, it was like we never could get on the same page when it came to parenting. It was like
parenting styles was completely different.
Yes, he was always good cop. I was always bad cop. And that wears on you. Like you don't ever want to be like, you know, always be the disciplinarian and have to wait for it to get like totally out of control for the other person to help you. And so like, you know, I was attacked as a mother a lot in my relationship because you know, I didn't have the same parenting style. And I don't think that, you know, I mean, I think we're all just out here doing, you know, the best we can when it comes to parenting. But
oh my gosh, none of us have a rule book. None of us know what to do. I mean, but when you're married and everything, I think it's good talks behind their back, you know, with no kids around and like a plan and try to stay on it as best you can. You're not always going to be perfect, but you know, try to back them up a little bit. But if it's so outlandish, it's like,
and I think verbal abuse, it just comes in so many forms and it can just be like, it can go from like subtle things to like really crazy things. And I think probably the thing that hurt me the most in my marriage or, you know, would be that I'm an open book. And so I think you know that about me. I mean, anybody that's close to me would know, like, I'm pretty much will probably tell you more than you want to know about myself if I trust you. You know what I mean? And so I felt like I trusted him with so much information and so much about my childhood and so much of how I felt and bad moments in our relationship, he would use that against me, you know, like, and that's rough, you know, like he attacked my mental health all the time. And did I have moments of being anxious and need to be on anxiety meds? Of course. Did I have moments of being depressed? Of course. But to think that he didn't have some mental health issues and that he could do no wrong, you know, that's why it was so tough to go to counseling. I know you felt this too, like when you went to counseling, because it was like, oh, she's got the childhood trauma, her. And when somebody doesn't, if they're not going to be willing to be authentic, you know, like
it's just such a waste of money and time.
Yes.
For people that aren't going to go in there and say, I need help. And, you know, don't go in there and think, just portray everything's perfect. Mm-hmm. Why are you there? Right. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's perfect, but that's just back to like an image thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
Let's go on to the next one. So as I neglect your needs. The truth is I'm only aware of my needs. If you met my needs, then I would meet yours. Too bad you never fully met my needs and you're on your own. It's all about me and don't forget it. Listen to me and watch my actions. I'm never going to lift a finger to meet your needs. And so I think like for me, like what I took from that, I highlighted, I'm never going to lift a finger to meet your needs. And so that came big. Like, we've talked about, I went for long periods of time with no sex and no affection in my marriage. It was like almost an affectionless, and it was always, anytime I asked him about it, it was always,
what you don't do.
Right. Well, you get what you give. That was if I had $1 for every time, I'd be like really rich, really rich if I had $1 for every time. You get what you give. And so it was like, it was supposed to be my womanly duty to come on to him, and I was supposed to be the initiator.
I don't like
sex.
that word.
Yeah.
I don't like duty. That word in a sexual matter.
And he would compare me. He would say like, every other woman in my life has always come on to me, and you're the only one that, does not. And
I'm going to do what I do to Gabe. I'm like, but there's been nobody else, right? Like, I've been the only one. Like,
that's
so
a good one.
That can't be. Like, you haven't ever.
I'm going to use that.
That's what I do to him. We were having a conversation last night, and I don't even remember what he said. And I was like, yeah, but that didn't happen because I've been the only one.
Yeah,
like,
the only woman in your life.
In your whole life. And he's like, baby, I'm never gonna lie to you, like, this. And I'm like, but I'm not. What are you talking about?
I'd be like, I don't even know how you got your kids.
Yeah,
like, how did you get here?
That's so crazy. If I've been the only one in my head, I can't even think about that. Yeah,
that's a good one. I refuse to communicate. I don't like to feel vulnerable, so I don't share my feelings or talk with you on a personal level, and I never will. Feel free to share your thoughts and feelings with me, but I will not be listening. If you rattle on too long or press me to open up and talk, I'll end the conversation by snapping at you and walking away. I have shut you down a million conversations with you. I'm going to shut down a million more. How does that one make you feel? Because that one makes me feel like, I'm like, I have literally like had that conversation, in my marriage so many times. And I'm like,
was this book like,
I know, jaw dropping, girl.
Yeah.
Jaw dropping. Cause it's like, I'm like, this is my life. Like, this is what I've been living, and I'm not crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, like, this is what I lived on a, like, pretty much daily basis. You know what I mean? So it's like in some form or fashion. And so I just literally was like, okay, well, because I never felt close to him.
Yeah.
I never I'd be like, well, all of this about me.
Like, I want to know some things. Mm-hmm. Like you want to know things about that person so that you understand them a little bit better, and mm-hmm. you understand their triggers. You understand what makes them tick, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it gives you so much insight into a person when you share.
Right.
When you have somebody who won't share, you're so clueless. You
Yeah.
don't understand.
Yeah.
You're confused. Like, you just don't
like
ever get
off.
it. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So I give you the silent treatment. When you do or say something that upsets me, I shut down and ignore you. I also use this technique every time you have the nerve to tell me about how a hurt I caused you. When you express an opinion different than mine, I take it as a personal attack. I can stay silent for days and weeks, even months. I'm punishing you and teaching you never to upset me. I will not allow you to have a voice. My opinion is the only one that matters. I will never talk through any difficult issue with you. So I underlined, I can stay silent for days and weeks, and I will never talk through any difficult situation with you. Because I just felt like it was always like, in a difficult moment, no matter what was going on, it was just round and round and round, and I never felt heard. And I'm sure he didn't feel heard either, but like, he was like the best at the quiet game.
This one makes me really understand like generational patterns, mm-hmm. because my dad is like king of silent treatment. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, and that was like he could go months. And I remember one time I cut my hair, and he didn't want me to cut my hair. He did not speak to me.
Oh my goodness.
For months.
Over hair.
And he acted like I was invisible. But at the same time would dote on, my sibling and, in front of me, So it's like, you're sitting there wanting them to mm-hmm. acknowledge you, and they're not, and it's just so hurtful. You know what I mean? I understand taking space, that day or whatever, but for that, like, that is like truly torment.
that when you go to counseling, they tell you like, it's okay to take time, but the max is 2 to 3 hours.
I was the queen of silent treatment in my young teenage years, early 20s. I'll still have to catch myself, not because I'm trying to withhold or abuse that person, just because I have to process. And so I have to tell myself like, okay, now it's enough is enough. And Gabe is good at being like, hey, come on, come out here. What's happening? You know what I mean? Because I could do it to somebody for months. I could do it for weeks, easy. And but it was all that I knew. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was something that I had to work on myself for, and it wasn't that I was doing it to hurt somebody. It was literally learned, which my dad probably learned it. It was probably a learned behavior. Mm-hmm. Because he had a hard childhood. And so I was doing the same exact thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like I could do that to somebody for a year.
Yeah. I remember
easy
growing up.
It would not bother me, Megan.
Yeah. Like my mom and like my dad that raised us, is like, they didn't ever fight in front of us. And so like I had him on a pedestal, you know what I mean? Like, and had this like perfect relationship in my head and could do no wrong. But then I would hear my sister's perspective, and she'd be like, well, they would get into arguments, but he would go like, mom would just go into the bedroom and he would sit in the living room. And so she, like, because she was 4.5 years older, she had a different perspective. And so she would see things and realize things, and I was younger, that I didn't really realize that was going on. You know what I mean? And so it's just kind of crazy how there's different perspectives. But in my marriage, like, he could go upstairs and live in another bedroom for weeks, but usually it was like self-induced, because it's like, okay, well, why did you have to go there? Like, and the reason would be is probably one of the 7 deadly sins. You know what I mean? Like, he had done
something one time that like, you and your siblings have different parents. You can have the same parents and you have different parents.
Right.
You have different perspectives. You are different ages. You are different phases of their life. Mm-hmm. I had my parents when they were in a chaotic, crazy, toxic time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. My other sisters have different experiences. Chelsea was just born when they were divorcing. Mm-hmm. Carly was, an older teenager that was out and about all the time, blowing in and out, and I was stuck there. So all of our experiences and the people that we see as our mom and dad are literally completely different.
I have to totally agree with that, because like I can see it with like my step siblings, the older 3 compared to me and my sister. And so
our experiences are so different.
So different, because the dad that they saw and experienced was in his 20s and 30s and 40s. And when he got me and my sister, it was his 40s, 50s, and 60s. You're just a different person. It was different life scenarios. He was making more money, and I don't disagree with how they feel. It just wasn't my experience. You know what I mean? And so I'm a better mom at 47 with Spencer, I just tune her out.
Brian
and
Maddie are going to think there's two totally different moms.
Because I'm just like I have more patience. I'm just like, okay,
One of my counselors one time told me, you have to remember that this is your mom's first experience of life as well. Mm-hmm. And this is your dad's first experience of life as well. And they are dealt the card that they're dealt. They're dealt different experiences and parents, and they're just going through this life for the first time as well, you know? So you have to give your parents grace too, because you don't know what they had.
We've talked about this. I had to go to Taryn and be like, you got to show me grace. I haven't dated in 20 years. Like, I'm relearning dating. Like, I'm going to fall down. I'm going to have to get back up. I
have a roster right now. Okay? I've never had one.
Yeah. Like, it is what it is. Like, but I literally, like, you're going to have to show me grace, and I'm going to make mistakes, and it is what it is. But I can promise you this, I won't make the same mistake that I made for 20 years. I won't do that. You ready? I control you. I control every area of your life, your contact with your family and friends, where you go, who you spend your time with, how much of my money, and it's all my money, you can spend, and what you can spend it on, what clothes you can buy and wear,
Oh, hell
the
no.
church we attend, and how you parent. I have to approve every purchase you make, but I spend my money however I choose. Since I'm a lot smarter than you are, the control makes sense. If you resist, you're not being submissive. If you stay with me, I will force you to live that way, the way I want you to live for the rest of my life. So I highlighted in this, we always had separate accounts. We've talked about this, I know, before, and that was not my choosing. We always had a separate bank account. And I know now it was due to transparency. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't want me to see what he was spending money on. And it's funny, like, I could spend all my money on the bills, and he did give me money, but it was sometimes, you know what I mean? It was like, sometimes he had it and sometimes he didn't. And so it's like he spent his money how he wanted to, and he hid his money, and he would have money in secret accounts.
So you can be transparent.
Right. I would be transparent and an open book, and he would not when it came to money.
That's a big one for women. Not just women, but a lot of women are treated this way because they're house, wives.
Right.
And so I think that one is a form of abuse because they have no independence
right.
at all. Even if they were being abused and did not want to leave, or they wanted to leave, they've literally can't. They can, but it's very hard. And so I think that we should do an episode over, like, creating independence and financial, planning and things that you're so good at, because I think it would, I think it's so helpful because lives. So many women are just stuck. I'm so grateful that I could be like, I am so done.
Yeah.
And I'm done, because so many people can't do that. I have so many clients that come in so upset, and they have nothing. They don't know what any of their bills are. They don't understand anything. And so they are like truly terrified and will not leave. They will ride it out.
I get that, because you just like, what do you like, there's we've talked about it.
We were always thankful that we didn't have to deal with that. So
And the next one is, I'm kind of piggybacks on that. It's like, I'm destroying you financially. I spend too much money. I make bad investments. I don't pay our taxes on time. I'm very secretive about money, and I lie about how I use it. You don't know this, but I'm not saving any money for our retirement. I run up huge debts without telling you.
Yeah.
Don't bother working too hard to pay off my debts. Hey, isn't that what bankruptcy is for? I'll just run up more debts. Does that ring home for you?
Yes, it does.
I know
it sucks because, like, there was always just secrets, excuses, gaslighting about, it to confuse you as to why they're not contributing or doing anything or helping you out. And they're just creating such a burden for you and your family and your children and everything, but they don't care. There was so many times that I would come home from work and my whole body would hurt, and I just miss my kids, and I just had to keep adding on more days to work because you don't have another, you're a single.
So to be clear, your ex didn't work.
Yeah. So you're a single, basically parent income, but you're still paying for an extra person and groceries and, a vacation. So that's another plane ticket and another, it's just another, not burden, but kind of burden.
Because it's almost like another kid.
Because, I would just bawl my eyes out and be like, I need help. Like, I think that was just like, it makes me want to cry because I feel like I miss so much in my kids' life because we're working and we don't get that luxury. And so they got the luxury of picking them up and going to the park or going to birthday parties or going to games or, certain things that we didn't, or I know I didn't get to do. And you had to miss out on because you're having to carry a load and it's not fair. And I understand if you've had a conversation about it and you're like, I want you here for them and I'm willing to take this on. But when there was no conversation about that and you're both willing and healthy and young and your kids are in school all day, like we don't have kids home. That was my what are we doing? Like our kids are literally at school. So what do you mean you have to be home, And it was just always this conversation that spun you around that you never understood, and it would wear you down so bad that you didn't want to have the conversation anymore. You're like, okay, well, I'll just go to work.
Girl,
you know?
In my marriage, it was like every year I hated tax time. So it was like when it was time to like relinquish the bank accounts, and I always handled all the finances. And then when it was time to, and I never knew how much money he made until the end of the year. And then I would see how much the money was, and I'd be like, but you gave me this amount, you know what I mean? And you made more money this year, and
I'll
you
never
didn't even
forget the time that I was on a walk and you called me and you were like, did you know that he made blah, blah, blah last year? Mm-hmm. Because he had worked a little, but he told, alluded, never told me, alluded and wouldn't answer the question, I guess gaslighted, into thinking he didn't make any money. It was very minimal. It was just a job he took for nothing. And then when you told me what he actually made,
it didn't help you,
and there was no contribution, I was like, wait, what? Like, where did that go? You know what I mean? And you're sitting there crying about it, and you can let somebody sit there and cry about it, and you're just like, and he would always go, yeah, I get it. That would literally be the only response. Was like,
I was the bank.
I get it.
I was the bank for my ex. Like literally, like he knew like if he didn't have it. So like if he didn't work, and it was always like this false sense of reality. Like, and if I just didn't say anything about it, then it finally, he would, if he didn't have money for bills, I'd be like, are you going to pay bills this month? And it could go on like that for 6 months and him not contribute $1. And then it would be like, oh, well, I've got 5 closings. It's going to be fine. And then somehow it always became 1 or 2 closings. It was always this false sense of hope and security, like to make me think that, like to hook me on to like, oh, it's about to get really good. And then it just never did. And then sometimes if it did, then he would hide the money. And how many times, because he was addicted to gambling, that at the end of the year, I'd be like, you took $60,000 out of the ATM, like, in the account, saying, how do I expense $60,000 in cash? And I'm like,
how do you?
You don't. So we had to pay that year, and he didn't have the money. He'd spent it all. So who had to pay it? Megan had to pay it. So it's like, like financially destroying. And so that's why, like, because I'm a good saver. Mm-hmm. And so I save for the downs on our house and my office building and all the cabins I built. And I was saving for the kids and their college. And I was saving for all these, items, and he wasn't. And so, like, there is no retirement. There wasn't any of that. I mean, all the savings was for me. And so he made good money, but he blew every bit he saved. Yeah. So that's
a form of abuse. That's interesting.
It is. Okay. And I'm destroying you financially. Like, I pretty much highlighted that whole paragraph except one sentence. So the next one I think is probably going to really hone in for you. I'm a lazy slacker. I don't like to work, so I avoid it as much as I can. I go from job to job and have long stretches of unemployment. For some reason, I can't seem to get along with management. I want you to have a career and shoulder the financial burden for our family. One day you'll see I may get a steady job and help support you and the kids, but then again, probably not. I deserve a great job right now.
Probably not.
Why should I work hard to earn it? I'm so glad I have you to support me for the rest of my life. And
my God.
I underlined that bottom sentence.
Oh my God.
This is going to be a good one for you.
Yeah. I feel exactly the same way as the last one. Yeah.
I mean, because I know that was like a big issue for you. Like, he had a job here or
and
there.
I am such a worker, and you are such a worker. And I'm still, this does make me really mad because I'm still climbing my way out of all of that. Just trying to
divorce,
stay afloat and make it work somehow.
Well, here's the crazy thing is, like, I just was back to, like, I would get bits and pieces, and then I finally got hip to the game, and I'm like, I'm going to work every day, and he's getting his toes done. He's going to the gym for 6 hours. He's meeting women. He is going to the casino. He is making me think. He's answering the phone. He's not going off the grid, but because I never had his location, I didn't have access to his phone until I filed for divorce that first time and put some ultimatums in place. And he did make some changes, but only for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, like, so he literally led a secret life during the day.
Yeah.
And so it was like he worked when he wanted to work. And so, like, yes, he had a job, but it's like you still have to get up and work.
Laziness is like a pet peeve of mine too, because I don't know if it's because I grew up poor and I watched my mom work many jobs. I mean, we would go clean the bank at night and we would all help her. Like one would empty trash cans and one would wipe down, and like we would all go in there and help her, you know, because she had to do that. You know, she was a waitress, she did this, she always, you know, had multiple jobs. And so I've always, you know, been that way.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to watch someone be lazy or not put effort in. And I even have to remind myself sometimes, like, not everybody is like you and like hustles like I do.
Right.
Like we're not all like built like that. But it is a big pet peeve. And so I don't know how.
I'm the same. Like if we would have had a conversation like, hey, you're going to be a stay-at-home dad and you're going to go pick up the kids from school every day and you're going to watch them after school while I work until 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, early in my career, 11 o'clock at night. But no, I've budgeted for a live-in nanny Monday through Friday. She's, you know, Judith, she's been with me 17 and a half years.
We always had daycare. Yeah. We always paid for multiple care.
I didn't have a stay-at-home dad situation. Did he help? Did he watch the kids sometimes? Yes. But for the most part, no.
It's not called watching your kids when it's your kids. Girl, you don't babysit your kids.
I don't know, girl.
I hate that.